All right, so this is Tory Lee and Joe Campagna. It doesn't have to be too professional, just an open-ended discussion about the non-axiomatic reasoning system with respect to future applications and potential future applications in biotech or just biology at large, as well as Tory's background in bioinformatics, or the time he spent working on some problems in bioinfo. But anyway, I guess I should start. How are you doing? Is everything okay? Or you doing okay?
Yeah, it's fun, but a little busy. It's okay.
Yeah,
Everyone,
I know this is no by no means has to be an hour long or anything, but I did want to ask or just say like, do you want to just give background so an audience knows who you are?
yeah, it's okay. Hey everyone, I'm Tory, and PhD student of Temple University, working with Dr. Wang, mainly about his research of non-semantic reasoning system, which is called NARS, and yeah, and corresponding with the corresponding logic, non-semantic logic, which is called NAL. And this project is more about to in my understanding, it's about using a kind of formal language, say logic, and building a system that is easy to be communicated with human beings and with something else. And its mainly effort is about the how how to see. This system is an adaptive system. That means it is able to adapt to different situations and make the most correct, or maybe not the most correct, that is the most correct under the current results and computational capability, and to have the good choice about things. Therefore, I think this definition is if we want to find an existed and a little bit famous branch of research that is about alignable structure, that if we want the system that is alignable and can be aligned with other human beings or with something else, but in some, but okay, in another word, we usually call it some kind of artificial general intelligence on the doctor's detection definition. But that's another story. For today's discussion with Joseph, I think I will mainly talk about my previous work on bioinformatics applying on such a system. Um, yeah, I think that's it. Details will be.
Okay, great. And the way I do want to, I have this. I want to talk at the end on just you already mentioned to me when we spoke in the first time which chapters I should read, but I'll ask you something about biology with respect to that in later at the end. But I guess when
Okay.
we say bioinformatics, it means a lot of different things. You're talking about genomics and sequence data, or structural bio with like say the folding problem, or drug discovery. What were you?
I think that is the first one. I mean, the task I have been working on is the first you have mentioned. And that's about reading a sequence of DNA or something like that, and we do something else.
And so it was when you were doing this, you were not applying any form of AGI, right? This is just your experience in bioinfo, right?
Uh, it is. Can I share my screen? I think it is. It will be easier to explain.
Okay.
Yeah, let me share my screen. Okay. Oh, it's showing that I'm not able to share my screen on my side.
Let me see if I can.
Mhm.
Hmm, I don't know if co-host privilege will allow you to.
Yeah. Okay, I got it. So please, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Mainly, I did these things. That is, I mean, two approaches that was finished in one of my courses about bioinformatics, and that is where I got a chance to apply the AGI related technique, but not really using NARS in this system. Since at that time, my understanding of our system and bioinformatics was not very sufficient. Okay, the first thing I did is about segmentation of DNA. In this case, and in second thing is about the SMP detection. And in these two things, I think it is better for me to explain this example right here. Since this is an arrowhead from this to this, but I think this is related to all these two things. Okay, first, think about it. If we have a sequence that is A, B, C, and D, and okay, this is just a sequence. I mean, it's a sequence. That means it is there's no such end, no such end start. It just continue. It just keeps going, and with something else, potentially maybe this place we got an question mark or here or something like that. In this case, we know there are two patterns. I set them a priori. That is, the first pattern is ABC, will followed with D, and XBC will followed by Y. These two things. Okay. I mean, these two types are set a priori, and the system does not know about it. And my mission is going to allow the system to find these two patterns. And our experiment shows in this example, I mean, I have infinite long. I have an infinite long, how to say, sequence just containing this such patterns, and in the end the system is able to learn such stable patterns A, B, C, and D, X, B, C, and Y, something like that. And this is inspired by segmentation of Chinese. Since in English, different words are segmented naturally, right? We speak a sentence and it composes of different words, but in some languages, such like Chinese, we do not have such spaces between words. These segmentations are finished inside of the system, the language. There are no very apparent marks about that. Therefore, in Chinese NLP tasks, some of these tasks like to do segmentation first, and that's where I got inspired. I'm thinking maybe, okay, if this is not a sequence of these characters, and this is a sequence of DNA or something like that, and is it possible for us to find some meaningful segmentations? Say, okay, this part of string will be very stable and it repeats several times, something like that. Is it possible for our system to find such subsequences? And our experiment shows in such case is okay. But when I was still, in the bioinformatics course, and I did the same thing to segment a DNA, and I got some results, but the performance I remember that was not very good, but I cannot remember the details. If you know, I think I may share later, but I did not prepare for that. Okay. Another thing is that, okay, if we know such a thing, we know A, B, C. Okay, that means we are able to let the system to learn such subsequences, such patterns like this. And we do not want to set the length of such patterns. Okay, we just assume there is such a pattern. Why we call the such a patterns is this patterns appears quite often, and I mean such patterns are stable. ABC with these like that, and in this case we have these two stable patterns A, B, C, and D, and X, B, C, and Y, and definitely okay. This is not a single, SNP. This is double DNP maybe, since there are two things varied. A and D, A and D in this X and Y. In this same way, I think maybe we are able to still find such a thing. So okay, A, B, C, and D, and when this A is replaced with X, we are still able to get B, C, D followed that. And I think that is defined as SNP in bioinformatics. Therefore, there are two tasks I tried in our system to do that. But if you want to know more details about the system, why we are able to get such a pattern, that was a long story. Sorry about that. I did not prepare a very good slide for that. But if you're interested, we may schedule another appointment and I will talk more details about that, the whole process.
Okay. Okay. Is there can this or anything like this this NLP approach should be applied to proteomics as opposed to like DNA sequence?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Can we apply any of this work as well to protein like amino acid sequences as well?
I think so. If they are able to be, if they are able to be represented in a sequence, no matter if it's DNA or amino acid, that's one. Actually, I think my experiments was finished on amino acid sequences, and yeah, that was a messy task. I may share some details later.
Okay. Curious. I'm working on something with. I don't know if he's in the chemistry department in bioinformatics. I'm sorry. Were you? Okay. You.
Yeah.
Dr. Vincenzo Carnevale. He works in teaches organic chem. He's in the but he's working on, sometimes he does a lot of stuff. Sometimes he works on origami nanostructures, which are, taking whether it be DNA, RNA, or protein sequences, and
Hmm.
using a staple scaffold to basically react with string. And what happens is you devise a structure based on the way they interact with each other. So these structures are made. So in other words, these structures are made of DNA base pairs, but they act like proteins. You could make a nanopore, a channel, whatever, what have you, any type of protein structure made from DNA components. So this is just totally spitballing, or we can go into some speculation or just your ideas. Do you think when it comes to like, I could show you maybe nanobase.org. I'll just put it in the description of this video for anyone who's watching. But there's essentially sites where they're either devising these in silico first, or I'm not sure the exact process, to be quite honest with you, or they have these models, these wet lab models, and then they transfer them to in silico. But I'm curious, it's kind of a loaded question, but with all of this generative AI, you're seeing generative protein diffusion models for protein generation and whatnot. Do you see any space for something like this NLP approach to building, uh, or even not just identifying, building or generating new structures that could have potential, be potentially useful,
Yeah,
not random structure.
I think I'm not 100% sure since I'm not really an expert in this area, but for the models you mentioned, is AlphaFold a candidate? I mean, when we're talking about building a protein, okay, that's great. And I researched a little bit about AlphaFold, and that was completely okay. A deep learning work with intersequences and with just on the 3D structure that was amazing, but and it was also very accurate. But for the details about how these proteins structured, how the sequences are structured with from a 1D string to 3D structure, I did not know too much about that. But I think if this structure are finished with several with a set, maybe that that is necessary to need to be a small set with several operations, and I think it is possible. For example, if we see this amino acid and we see another one, and these two should be connected in this 3D structure in this way. And I think since I'm really not familiar about that, if we are able to represent the construction of a protein like this way, I think it will be fun to read something and do something just like. And yeah, I don't think that this is an appropriate analogy, but it is quite like Turing machine to read something and do something, but in Turing machine that and this recipe needs to be fixed. And if so, I think it is fine. In our system, I think it is even better since we do not need to require such a process to be fixed. It can be changed, but this, how to say, to change the structure, it needs the support of experiences. If in the experience it does not change, I mean there are no variations, just a fixed time, it is fine. But if it's not a fixed time, it is also fine by our system, I think.
Mhm. Okay, and now just touching on NARS and more in general, this is just for the audience. I know we've already established this when you clarified this, but I knew this when I spoke with you. But is this not, this is a non-neural AI? This is
Mhm.
not, and then but on the same. The good thing about these things, or correct me if I'm wrong, is that when most people conceptualize AGI, they're thinking of a massive deep learning model or some type of network of
Yeah,
deep learning models,
exactly. Yeah.
which
Recently, I got more and more of my friends or previous classmates would like to publish some blogs and talking about okay, AGI with different understandings. And one spoiler that is, I detected this might be an issue, and I think it is also a chance for our team to explain our understanding of AGI and a series of video tutorials about our system with introductions. Still, yeah, I'm working on that, and it's how to say. I'm not sure how long it will be published online, but I think there was a project like this. At that time, I think that will be much better for 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 our audience to know more about our system. But I think here, I think in short, to talk about the difference of our system with the mainstream deep learning AI or deep learning AGI. And okay, let me talk. Uh, do I have the time to talk about that, or I'm not sure.
I have
I don't
I
want.
have I have an hour and a half, but we don't have to go
Mhm.
that long if you don't mind.
Okay, okay. And do you want me to introduce the difference of our system with deep learning AGI or something like that?
Uh, yes, but the reason I did bring that up
Hmm.
is I wanted to touch on a lot of people find use obviously in interpretability, right? And the black box
Oh yeah,
are not.
absolutely.
So when it comes to something like this for biotech or bioinformatics, we can touch on this later. You can dive into the what you wanted to first, but
Hmm.
yeah, just like how maybe you could touch on your thoughts on interpretability with respect to your
Okay, okay. I
your
will
work
talk
on
about
some
more about
models.
interpretability. And okay, our system is more like a reasoning system. That means it is finished in kind of logic or can be expressed. Um, how to say the process can be explained in a reasonable way. For example, if I ask a person why this guy would like to do that, and I may got an explanation, and I can understand that. And that's why I think, okay, we two can understand each other. But for deep learning, if we ask the deep learning system, why would you like to give me that result? The deep learning system's process, the deep learning system's process is also very clear, but it is expressed in a vectorized way. I mean, you got a kind of vectors and got a bunch of computations. Okay, they are there, but it is hard for us to understand that. And another example is that why we want to use transfer learning to combine different neural networks instead of okay, you two guys are just communicate with each other and generate a new one. No, these two, this okay, in transfer learning, the previous model or the existing model is transferred to a new model in a way that is completely merged into it. The previous one is completely changed. That is, we want a new process of learning to merge these vectors, to let these vectors understand each other. In that case, we may say neural network can understand another neural network, but we cannot understand these neural networks. There are several works I researched a lot on that to talk about the interpretability of neural networks. Mainly, I think there are three streams about that. The first is that we just generate a bunch of natural language explanation of what the neural network is doing. I mean, the neural network will give the results along with an explanation why I get this result. But the result is also given by training. That means the result is also another kind of vector, say selected by another kind of vector. They are built in. I mean, it is still possible for that explanation is indifferent with the results neural network gives. Another stream is about, okay, let's just talk about uh, let's just give an how to say let take a look inside of the neural network, see the feature maps, and to say okay, this is uh, quite often used in computer vision. Say we get an image and we get a heat map to say okay, currently the neural network would like to say I these the red parts are the parts I'm using, and these blue parts, the dark parts, this neural network is not using. But there is still another issue in this stream. That is, okay, how these heat maps are given still by computation. though we know such a heat map, see, is it possible for us to give a different heat map but with a similar meaning? That means, okay, in this image, we got 100 pixel on this object. Is it possible for us to give an extra pixel, just one more pixel? See, 101 pixel to talk about the heat map. Will I think from our human, from our perspective, of human beings, we are able to say, okay, the 100 heat map and the 101 heat map are very close and almost with no differences. But for neural networks, no, these are extremely different things, and neural network only allow one of them to exist. Another thing, the third stream is about, okay, let's take a look of just a variable in the neural network to say, if I change it a little bit, what will happen in the neural network? This is kind of, behaviorism to say the interpretability of the neural network. But these interpretabilities are for neural networks, I mean, among neural networks, are for, or this is for neural network and the engineer of these neural networks. But it is hard for these things to be communicated with the experts in different domains. Therefore, in our system, we try to use a kind of logic, mainly like natural language, to explain everything. And like we human are talking with each other, try to understand the same thing in two different systems. And that mainly about the interpretability of our system things. We are logic, right? And we can give explanations. And there are very good features of our system to okay, I know here I may got some criticisms of using a reasoning system to do AI things. That was not defined. That was assumed as a bad idea at the beginning of researching AI, at the very beginning of AI, to say, let's try reasoning system things. For reasoning system, mainly we are working, I think your first impression might be propositional logic or first order logic. And these things are traditional mathematical logic. We are not using the same thing. Since traditional mathematical logic is axiomatic, we say we do not allow A and not A appear in the same system. If so, we can get absurdum, and absurdum will generate every statement we want. That's that means this logic system explodes. That is one issue. That means it is how to say it is axiomatic. Another thing about this traditional logic system is that, okay, if we may not know one proposition, the truth value of one proposition or one statement in an infinite time or in a finite but reasonable time. It may take infinite long to give the truth value of that thing. But in our system, we do, in our system, things we are still a reasoning system, but we use a different logic, which is called non-axiomatic logic. First, it allows contradictions, but this is very natural, right? This I asked the person about the weather outside. Someone may say it is sunny, but for another guy, it may told me it is a little bit cloudy. Okay, we know the weather, but if we want to give the weather just one apartment, it should be sunny or cloudy. But here we allow the contradiction, other thing, or different thing. I may ask a friend in my homeland. Okay, is it night? He may told me that yeah, it is night. But for me, this is still daytime, not night, right? It is fine. We are able to merge different without this knowledge, even they have contradictions, and to get a combination with, and we may get a combination of, how to say, understanding of that. Another example is that birds can fly. This might be true, but this cannot be placed in a traditional mathematical logic system. Why? Since we know there are birds can fly and there are birds cannot fly. For example, penguins, right? But another thing is that our system would like to use a mechanism which is called control mechanism, partially related to the attention mechanism in neural networks to say, or just to use the word attention. Our system knows, for you and me, we have a lot of thoughts, even more than 100 thoughts in our brain in just 1 second. We are not able to afford the time and effort to think about every of them. We just do the reasoning and think on something we think it needs. us to think about that, right? This is also true for our system. As a reasoning system, it does not abuse reasoning on every possible branches. It just do reasoning when it is necessary for the system, or it is worthy for the system to do a reasoning on that thing. Therefore, our system, though it is a, how to say, reasoning system, logical system, but it is real time. See, that means it is real time. It is able to react to the real time uh, activities, just like two human beings are talking about each other. I may interrupt you and something else may interrupt you, but you are not a machine. You know what to do. You know how to say allocate your resources to this new coming things, something like that. So for the interpretability of our system, it is perfectly fine. It is a reasoning system. It will give you a reasonable it will give you a reasonable explanation. And as a reasoning system, it does not have the drawbacks of traditional mathematical logical reasoning system. It is real time and it allows contradictions. Things such a lawrence of contradictions might be very useful in such systems. For example, I may give you two pieces of information. They are both from me, but one is correct since because of my carelessness. I just not very careful to give you a wrong message. And another thing, I was thinking, oh, that was my mistake. I give you a correction. But these two things may be a contradiction, but in traditional and maybe a contradiction, and that happens quite often in our daily life. Therefore, allowance or contradictions are also very important. Another thing is the real time. Okay, for the real time capability, that might not be very, how to say, uh, important or crucial in analyzing sequences, maybe in bioinformatics, since we do that thing in a laboratory, not in real time, something like that. But I think that is still useful for researchers to communicate with the system. I mean, let the system know. Now pay attention to this sequence. I think this is important. And in the following instruction, since the priority, since I mentioned such subsequences to the system, and system gets a priority boost on such sequences. So something related will draw more attention and get more resources to be reasoned. Therefore, I think the reasoning capability, no, sorry, the real-time capability is also very important. That's it.
So I want to just say two things. So I mean, based on the interpretability aspect of your stuff, I would, this is a joke, but I'm saying I would prefer NARS to interpret a system over, maybe you've heard this, the LLMs interpreting other LLMs or trying to understand them. I've seen some Twitter.
Yes, for these large language models, they are very useful and they are fascinating. But in some cases, I think we still need to pay attention when using the things. I use the large language model to find, how to see, related researches. I want to get some papers on one idea, and ChatGPT really gave me some papers, but I searched the whole internet, but I did not find these papers. Since these papers are just fake. They are generated by the system. They do not exist. Therefore, in some use cases, I don't think that is very highly appreciated, but yeah.
Okay. And the other thing, we can just play. I want to play devil's advocate for a second. Especially I'm sure I don't know if you have friends in robotics, for example, but now that we find that's kind of speeding up, or is a little bit anyway. There's the question, well, what if you just had a deep learning network that's taking in continuous real-time data, right? Instead of discrete, what have you. So in that case, I'm just challenging NARS here. Like, what is? I still a lot of questions I have, but what would you say to I've seen, for example, Dr. Hammer with Henry the robot. I forget the name. But the point is, there's an early model, but it's based on the real time dynamics, correct? of
Mhm.
yeah. So what difference between a more sophisticated version of that versus say you put them in two Hansen robotics?
Okay, got it, got it. Yes, that is the things. That is mainly from, I did not 100% involved in Dr. Patrick Hammer's research, but I know something about that. Okay, let's talk about that. I think the difference between an uh, robot using our system with a robot built equipped with a very complicated how to say deep learning system. The difference is that in deep learning system, it is still originated with its training data. I mean, if we say this is a very sophisticated deep learning model, I think we mean two things. The first is that it has a lot of parameters, but I think this is not in our discussion. We are talking about this system can, how to say, can perform correctly in very, very sophisticated situations. That means in training this robot, we need a lot of data to cover even every cases of the system, every cases in the using environment of this robot. That is impossible, since we will never know what will happen in the future. This is covered by David Hume a long time ago. And think about that. If we want to say, okay, we just want a robot that work well in our street, like autopiloting, right? The self-driving car. These things, I think in our street, it is kind of regularized, right? We know what is a street and we have a lot of pedestrians that will follow the instructions and will not, how to say, their performance will be 90%, I'm not sure, will be kind of predicted. Therefore, but in that case, currently, we do not have such very good technique for self-driving, since no matter what, there are something out of the consideration of the training data. For example, is it possible for a pink elephant on the street? Usually it will not. How about a purple elephant if you add a pink elephant to your training data? How about something else? Therefore, for a deep learning robot, it is able to cover indeed a lot of things, but it will not cover everything. But for our system at the beginning, it will if we do not give it any a priori knowledge, it will cover nothing. But if it will try to learn what to cover, for everything the robot meets, it will know about it and try to use its knowledge, built-in knowledge, even that built-in knowledge is not related to the new circumstance. It will try to do the comparison to compare the similarity and do the correct reaction about that. That is not to say, okay, our robot will do everything correct. This is still a process of learning. For example, when the first time on the street, you see an UFO just parked in the center of the street, what will you do? Absolutely, I'm not sure what I will do, but I will use my knowledge to do something correctly. At least I will not approach that UFO and call 911, something like that. And but for a deep learning robot, when it says an UFO parked in the center of the street, this is brand new circumstance. It never says something like that. Therefore, it will simply treat it with as a different car, a different type of truck, or some obstacles in the street, or do something like that. So that is what we don't want. We may think these deep learning robots as some kind of tools, and that is able to, since we use machine learning, it does not everything to be programmed by ourselves, but it still have the limits. And this limits is about the training data. And when the training is finished, and when the robot goes out of the laboratory, it is not going to keep learning. For our system, and I think especially for Patrick's robot, and it has a capability of doing that. Since I think that project is going to have a robot working in some, you know, nonsense, how to say, never seen environments and to act it correctly.
Okay, that's excellent. I realize I'm gearing my questions a little too too much into pure AGI and robotics, so I'm going to bring it back if it's okay with you.
Okay, okay.
Um, we discussed when I met you a while back the idea of the reverse folding problem or the denaturing problem, right? So we know in AlphaFold, for example, each step in in AlphaFold one, I guess I understand a little. It's less vague to me is when you're deriving the loss, each step or confirmation along the way of the path, that these are not biologically plausible. This is not biologically accurate. This is the steps taken to get to the prediction, and it's not the point either. That's not the point of AlphaFold. But for I'm very curious in that denaturing or untangling problem with proteins. So especially for you think like because my background is neuroscience, so I think of like the Alzheimer, the amyloid beta 42 plaques, or the Lewy body for the other dementias and whatnot. So I'm curious. It was kind of is a very heady question, and I apologize for that. But I do remember I believe some encouragement from you with the respect to the idea that maybe your system or NARS could. I pose this a little differently because I was
Mhm.
thinking of having agents within the system, like small agents. We can abstract away details like optical antenna or however you control these small agents, or maybe not. I'll let you speculate on this, but the idea is that say you had these little nanobots, right, that could eat
Mhm.
away or unfold a plaque in the brain, or a tangle. So this is do you I know this is like 100 years into the future because it requires so many different transdisciplinary
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
What do you
absolutely.
think of the idea of an adaptive system, and like there's reason that this could, I'm again, I apologize for the headiness, but I'm just trying to pull farther into bio now. And I know we're not NARS is not fully Pei was telling me NARS is not fully at that stage yet where we're looking into too much biotech or bioinformatics. But I'm not asking you if this is feasible soon. I'm just asking, do you see it as a possibility to have a swarm of controllable agents under you know, the non-axiomatic reasoning system? Is this too silly of a question?
I think it is possible. I mean, okay, first, I mean, I need to talk about some ethics of artificial intelligence. Okay, my following discussion will definitely follow the ethics or artificial intelligence. That means it will not be evil or something like that. We just talk about the technique could be used to fulfill such requirements. See, with some nanobots and work independently, or okay, maybe with its mates, something like that. And I think it is okay thing, but I'm not 100% sure. Okay.
Just
For
real quick,
mhm,
just an easier way for the audience anyway to conceptualize
mhm.
this. I know Patrick and others.
Okay, got it.
I mean,
Okay,
like
just to
they talk about search. I wanted to say they talk about like search and rescue, right? So just forget nanobots. So what if we have drones trying to search for somebody under the control of a non-axiomatic reasoning system? That might be. I wanted to still touch on the biology, but it's the same problem essentially, just on a different order of magnitude. So do you see what
okay,
I'm
okay,
saying?
yeah, I got it. I got a way to explain it. And let's use our example. We want to draw to look for someone, and just look for someone. Our system in our system or in non-axiomatic reasoning system. And this system is driven by goals. I mean, we give the system different goals. This might be from itself. See, the robot is hungry. It needs to, it needs to chart itself, or the robot feels like one of its wings is broken, so it needs to repair. It needs to repair that. And these are goals. There are also goals given by there are given by ourselves. See, we want the drone to look for someone, and first, okay, we need to give, but this is general explanation of goals. That means the system, what the system needs to do. But actually, these goals happens everywhere in the system. We go have goals, we have sub goals, or we may have different situations. See, we have two things to do next: what to do first, or what to do next. What to do second. We may say, okay, do the first may harm the second one, or do the second may benefit the first one. In this case, we must do the second, right? Or something like that. So we just need to see that the goals happens in everywhere in the system, including that things. Therefore, the first kind of goal I cite, I mean, these instructions adjusted to let the robot, to let the agent know what to do, and that is from your human commander, and you must do it. Another kind of goal is generated by the system itself to let it control itself. In this case, we do not many detailed commands from us to control the drone. It can control itself. For example, when you want to raise your hand, do you need to imagine how to control each muscle of your arm or of your body? No, we don't do that. We do it unconsciously. And we also want the system to do something like that. We have something conscious. Oh no, this wording are not very accurate, but I think that is okay in this context. Okay. We want the robot to be conscious, since we need to let the robot know what to do. We need to let the drone know what to do. And we also need the robot to do something unconsciously, since we do not need the robot to ask us everything about what to do next. Therefore, I think it is possible for this drone to control itself, and for this drone to also receive the orders from these human commanders, not commanders, controllers, right?
That's the one part I'm always struggled with with AGI or AI systems in general, in more generally, is the problem of consciousness, and it relates back to bio and biotech. Maybe I can.
Oh, I think I may use 1 more minute to clarify one misunderstanding. Since we see AGI, and when we usually see AGI, especially deep learning AGIs, we are talking about its capability. See, this AI is very powerful, can solve problems that I'm not able to solve. For say, but it also needs to be general. That means it is able to solve a lot of things that I'm not able to solve. One example, AlphaGo is very powerful Go player, but can it open a bottle for me? No, right? So it is not usually considered as general intelligence. But for ChatGPT, we may think it is a kind of general intelligence. Why? Since it can answer a lot of questions for us. Even these questions are not that hard to understand. So that is one. In summary, that is in talking about deep learning AGI or AGI in described by many medias. We are talking about its capability. But in our understanding of talking, if we see our system, non-axiomatic reasoning system, as a kind of AGI, we are just talk about its generalities. For example, we have two people and they work in different domains. See, one is a scientist, another is an artist. Can the scientist do something the artist can easily do? I'm not sure. So I'm still a student, but I'm still on the science side. Okay, it's hard for me to learn how to play piano. But for the scientist, for the artist, he or she might consider, okay, it might be difficult to program on computers. But do you think we two guys, the scientist and the artist, are not general intelligences? That's not true, right? So we say general, we say about we are able to do a lot of things. See, but even the scientists are hard to learn how to play piano, but he or she could still learn how to do that. This is not hard coded. And so this general may represent a general capability of learning, not the specific capabilities that is general that could be considered general. I'm not sure this.
It
I know
makes
this
sense.
is not a good
The
understanding.
issue
Yeah.
is not with your explanation. The issue is with people's denotation problem at large with respect to AGI, and it's
Yeah,
just
yeah. So
Like
I use,
for
yeah,
example, just says
mhm.
it's human level, human level or human like AI is AGI, correct?
Uh, Not sure since I think in Dr. Wang's book we're talking about human like and AGI the differences. That is a long discussion, but I think that why I want to talk about that since in the John example you told me, when we say the John might be a how to say, with the John might be a powerful deep learning AGI. I mean, its capability is really strong. It is able to find something, but its capability is fixed. It may find a person, find an animal, find something else, find a how to say a car or something like that, but they are fixed. It is not able to learn outside of the laboratory. But for our system, when we see this drone is a artificial general intelligence in our context, we say this system, this drone is just able to find, I mean, find everything. But what to find, that is based on its knowledge. If we teach this the drone how to, if we teach the drone what is defined as a person, or what is defined as an animal, what is defined as a vehicle, something like that. If the system has the knowledge, it is able to find. So that is more general about finding, but you need to let the system know what to find, some features, something like that.
Okay, that's great, and this actually segues into and we don't need to overbear this and make it too long because I do have a lot of content now, and I thank you for this. But I do want to touch on this question, which goes into neurotech or biotech. Of
Okay.
you mentioned, we need goals in the system, right, in order to do things, and I'm based on what you're saying, I'm bullish on the idea that say you have a BCI implant, like an advanced BCI running an AI. I'm sorry for the heady speculation and whatnot, but in principle, you could you could search that thought space. The system could search more thoughts or search be able to perform more goals, some in other words, maybe abstracting away some guesswork. You're definitely augmenting something, although when people talk about cybernetics, this field of like BCIs and whatnot, it seems like, for just because of the trends that we have, it's very deep learning centric, like they would what comes to mind is like, computer vision for a prosthetic retina or
Yeah,
something like that. Where
okay.
where could you see, if you could just speculate for a second, where and if possible, where could you see an application for NARS in human cybernetics for human augmentation as opposed to robotics?
Human.
And if it's
Uh,
too
okay.
speculative, I apologize. I don't mean to.
Okay. And do you think that if my understanding is correct, you want NARS to try to do something to augment ourselves?
So we
Uh,
have GPT-4 in our phones now. What if GPT-4 was in our retina and then got far, closer to our biology? So
oh yeah.
forget deep learning and large language models. Is there any utility to having a system such as, really NARS? Is there any
Uh-huh.
utility to having NARS interface with us as humans on that deep level, or is NARS more along the lines of uh, independent, autonomous helper or servant kind of?
Yes, I think so. That is the kind of project I planned to do, but I did not finish it. That is, I tried to use NARS to collect every message of eating, exercising, and my weight or something like that to do that. Since you may think NARS is able to summarize some useful conclusions from the experience. For example, I eat a hamburger and and in the end I got my weights rises. Okay, that is not what I want. So I may let the system know I do not want to. I want to lose weight. Okay, and I just let the system know I want to lose weight, and I will let the system know what I want to eat next, and will I get the same thing? And the system will let me know from your past experiences, eating hamburger might not be a good choice. That is one thing I can think for personal. Okay, but I still have another project still ongoing at the very beginning, talking about using NARS to help the how to say, to um help the whole society. Oh, that is a big word. I'm sorry, I apologize. But that means that, for example, um, since I'm a fan of detective novels, and in that sense, the detective will usually receive many evidences from different people. And these things, someone might be lying, someone might be partially lying, someone might be honest. And we may have our evidences, that is, I think the system will try to act as a detective to collect all these evidences. Since our system allows contradictions, that's true, and it is a good chance for our system to try to collect the different evidences and to make it clear who is lying. I got one example, that is there was some examples online talking about if there are three people and one is lying, for example, one is honest and the other two are lying, and they have different statements of the same case. And I like the system to do the same. I like the system to translate these natural language expressions into nurses, the language of our system of logic, and to let the system detect who is lying. The result is okay. It looks good. So I think that also might also be another very useful and helpful application for our system.
Yeah, that's excellent because for example, if you give a, I don't mean to, a logic puzzle
Oh,
like that.
I also
Yeah, yeah.
compared the performance of that one with large language model. I just almost input the same thing. One is in narcissist, one is in natural language English. And the large language model will give me something very confusing, since
Right, right.
that was not a description. That is no, that is not reasonable. And even that is explanation given by large language model. From ChatGPT, we know that ChatGPT will give us a very long explanation, and that is not accurate. I give the system a lot of evidences, and it just gives me a different kind of evidences let me to judge. That is what I don't want. And even the performance on large language model compared with our system in these cases I experimented, our system wins. Okay, I'm very proud of that, but that is not hard to imagine. Since our system is a reasoning system, the reasoning system will mainly contain on logic. So if there are no such logic, no such results. But for large language model that is based on vectors, I know there are logics in vectors, but it's hard to detect.
That okay. Thank you. You segued into the point I wanted to draw to and clarified that. I guess just out of curiosity, and it's my fault for I love talking about the pure AI AGI side. But what about another thing GPT was never really good at? Maybe the newer model is the physics based or the geometry based issues. So if you ask it, or no, this was excuse me, this was a diffusion model. Dolly, I believe. If you prompted it, and I apologize for getting a little convoluted here, but if you prompted it, put a red triangle on top of a yellow cube with a blue sphere standing sitting to the left of it. The early models, and I believe current models, I could be mistaken, they don't know how to do this. They don't have any physics informed or geometry informed understanding of the world. Is there a
I'm not
logic?
sure. Since I think 2 or 3 years ago, and even 5 years ago, I heard there are some deep learning researches about such, specifically these geometries, to detect the relationship on position between these different objects, and what's the color, what's the texture, what's the shape, and what's the position. And they did, and I think in the deep learning research field, they did a good job. That was already solved. But when talking about your question, I mean, to really form that, to really how to say operate these different objects. Let's see, put a red cylinder upon the blue cylinder, something like that. and the deep learning systems, currently that is, I may miss something, but from my knowledge, that is currently I don't know there are some deep learning model, famous deep learning model that is able to, how to say, to really get the order and move these objects to the desired shape. I don't know that, but I think this might be finished in robotics. We have different, these different robotics arms that can do that. I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. I was gonna touch on this, but also we really I think we've exhausted the points with respect to biotech. I wanted to say thank you for taking the time to speak with me. I know I'm just a master's student in a different domain, so it's kind of there's a concept barrier
Mhm.
sometimes. But I appreciate you talking to me. Di- Maybe we can schedule something another time, and if those blogs
Yeah,
videos
it's
ever get
fine.
completed, I can
Yeah,
put
okay,
the
it's okay.
description of this video.
And okay, I also want to say something that
Sure.
in the end, that for this audience, this other audience, except for Joseph, that is, uh I'm still a PhD student. I'm still learning, and I may not 100% understand Dr. Wang's ideas. And so these things are just based on personal understanding, and they might be mistaken. And if you have any comments or questions, please send me an email or something like that. You may find me on Dr. Wang's page. That is not a problem. And uh, yes, just to make it clear, that is my understanding might be wrong. So yeah, that's it.
All right. With that said, could I plug your email in the description, or would you prefer people just find you through other means?
Oh yeah, it's okay for you to put my email on that.
Okay. All right, Tori. Thank you very much. I'll end the call here.
Yeah, appreciate it. Have a good one.
You too.